Just all the people that voted.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the fun show here at Big TV. Seasonal music, sir. And he was actually rehearsing his 4th of July medley before we came on the air. But in any case, gives me the opportunity to tell you that the 4th of July will occur before you see us again. And we hope you all enjoy it and celebrate it and remember the days when the United States of America was a democratic republic instead of a dictatorship.
Oh, is that it? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, we're celebrating the now voided accomplishments of our ancestors.
Okay.
So remember that on the 4th of July, that you used to live in a free country that was the leader of the free world.
Okay.
If you want to do that again, join us and move to Germany. And on top of that, today, the
I'm
new
not moving to Germany.
Supreme Court of the United States proved that the end is already here. They approved Herr Trump's travel ban, and it is now quite clear that as soon as they can get a case to the Supreme Court, they will be overturning Roe v. Wade. However, on the other hand, there's still a few independent operatives in Washington, D.C. The Congressional Budget Office came up, I think, quite quickly, given the fact that they were only given this abomination of a Trump don't care health bill a couple of days ago. They figured out that 22 million Americans will lose health insurance by 2026, and that the number of uninsured citizens in the United States will then be 49 million people. But of course, the Republicans say, of course no one will die because they don't have health insurance. You don't need doctors to stay alive, according to them. I don't know. Well, I know what the AMA thinks. The AMA condemned their bill today. And on the other side of the coin, the dear, delightful, sinister, and evil Koch brothers are complaining that this bill is entirely too generous. Too generous. They don't support it. They want a total repeal of health care, and they'll settle for nothing less. They're prepared to spend $900,000 to get it.
Because they care. That's the reason, isn't it? They care about
They
the
care
money.
about their taxes.
Yeah, they care about that tax cut. That's what it's about. Well,
Apparently the tax cut isn't big enough for the Koch brothers. you know.
No, never.
They're very, very, very evil people out there. Very bad, evil people. And the ugliest human being on the face of the earth, having surpassed Jumping Jack Flash.
Well, evil. What about the evil Knievel?
Wait a
Did you ever
second. Wait a
mention
second. I
him?
want to finish my story about the ugliest human being on the face of the earth, Kellyanne Conway, who was trying to defend slashing Medicaid by insisting it wasn't a cut, somewhat illogically. And then when she couldn't sustain that, her solution was that anybody losing their Medicaid should simply get a job. Of course, the fact that Medicaid covers approximately 60% of all the lower middle class and poor children in the world, I guess, actually, I shouldn't be surprised. I guess she thinks they should get a job.
All the kids should be out selling newspapers. You're
But
right.
the interesting thing about this ugly bitch is that she's totally unaware that 30% of lower paid full-time adult workers in the United States are not offered employee paid health care. So getting a
30%.
job will do them no good whatsoever.
Okay, there
What
you
do you got, my friend?
What have I got? I got Ford says, even though the President Trump won't like it, Ford is going to build a new factory, a car factory in China.
In China?
In China.
Okay.
China builds most of the cars in the world now. That was in the New York Times.
I don't think that's at all true.
Well, this is what it said. And Trump's
Have
reaction
you
to
ever
this.
seen a Chinese car?
What?
Have you ever seen a Chinese
They
car?
build all the models. They don't just build their own Chinese cars. They build everything.
Have you ever seen a Chinese car?
No, I haven't. But they have all these other cars they're selling.
Of course, you know, if I could have a business selling cars just to Chinese people in China, I'd probably be as rich as Donald Trump claims to be. You know.
Can you figure out this business with Qatar, that little place at the
That
bottom?
we used to call Qatar.
Qatar. I hear the news people calling it Qatar. I don't
They
know.
do. They've been calling Qatar for, I don't know,
Okay.
10 or 12 years now.
This place supports terrorists and Al Jazeera.
Wild claims
TV.
and accusations.
And the Saudis and their allies want it to end it. They want this whole thing to be ended. They want Al Jazeera out. And President Trump seems to agree that what the Saudis say is good, and the Qatar has to.
So explain to me why he just approved a $22 billion arms deal with Qatar.
Yeah, well, all
Explain
those
that to
planes
me.
that we're selling. Yeah, well, maybe you can explain to me how we can. We have this country that's playing this game with terrorists, but we have the biggest air base in the Middle East is in Qatar with 11,000 servicemen on that base.
Okay.
How does this square? How do you make sense
And,
out of this?
and how large do you think the Qatar army is?
I don't understand I don't understand, and I think the Secretary of State is having a tough time with all this stuff too.
Well, forget the Secretary of State. Ask Jared. You know, he's in charge.
Well,
We'll
you
figure
read
this out.
all about him tonight.
Yeah, we'll get Jared in charge.
You want to tell us something about?
No, not at the moment. No.
Oh, you don't want to.
Susan.
Yes, sir.
What you reading?
Oh, well,
An interesting book.
yeah, it's about E.B. White. Did you kids ever read Charlotte's Web?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, he wrote-
E.B. White has to be in the previous generation the most famous children's writer around, right?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
And this book was on the Hornbook. It's a Hornbook Honor
Yeah.
by Melissa Sweet. It's called Some Writer, and it's a biography
Okay.
for children about him. It's pretty nice.
So you write a biography of a children's writer aimed at children,
Yeah,
which makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's got illustrations of his and pictures.
And
nice.
it's good.
Yeah.
Let me ask.
Susan is our resident expert on children's
Wow.
books.
Oh, that's.
Well, you know more about it than anybody else at
Okay.
this table,
right.
right?
Than we do. You know more about it.
Yeah.
But here's a hypothetical about the school superintendents in all over the country. They're hired to manage the school systems. So what are the duties of these elected school committee members?
Well, that's the same as what the difference is between the CEO of a corporation and the board of directors,
You think?
or the president of Harvard and the board of overseers. I mean, this is not unusual. This is probably the most typical management structure in the United States of America.
But it leads to a lot of troubles, wouldn't you say, Susan?
You mean
Between the school committees and what the superintendent wants to carry out with his, if he has a new approach, a new policy, some new policies.
Well, they don't listen to each other.
What?
I don't think they listen to each other.
You don't think
No,
they
it's
listen?
all about. They want to look good for the newspapers. It's really not about the children.
Well, you know, I think in fact that it's a case by case basis. I mean, most of the years that I was heavily engaged here, the superintendent and the school committee in Brookline were just like this
Once,
for a
Which one?
long time.
yes.
For a very long time.
That,
And now we're in the situation where the school committee, for whatever reasons and through whatever machinations, hired a totally and completely an absolutely incompetent person to be superintendent, and then went bug crazy themselves. You know, so we were in a case where we couldn't look to either the school committee or the superintendent because both of them were totally off the rails. Now, in the past, I've said, well, our new superintendent hasn't been around long enough to make much of a judgment, but they're certainly not making a great effort to make an impression
Okay.
or garner support from the community. Whether they're garnering support from the school community or not, I really can't say. But the thing is that a school committee and a superintendent are well advised to remember that the people sending their children to your school is not your only constituency. You know, you've got to have the support of the rest of the population.
Susan, what about Metco? Would you like to be running that?
Gene just retired, but no, I wouldn't want him running it.
You wouldn't want to run that?
No.
That would be a challenging job.
Oh, definitely would be. I mean, look how long she.
I knew her pretty
Yeah.
well.
Oh, my father used to work with her husband. I've known her since I was a
The
little
school-
kid.
Everybody at this table knew her.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So-
Okay. What about that little girl who was up there on a ride and she was sliding out from under the
Six Flags somewhere. I don't even know
yeah,
what state it was.
and she was
She was in
29
some sort
feet
of like
up.
gondola ride or something,
Yeah.
and she was somehow, whatever she was doing, she had slipped under the bar and was dangling from the ride. And
The-
a whole bunch of people came. They gathered under her.
They
and
were
when she
yelling to
fell,
her.
they caught her.
Oh,
Yeah, they were
But
yelling
don't they
to her,
have a height
"Let go,
Huh?
let go."
What?
don't they have like height requirements and size requirements
She
for those
seemed
things?
to be
'Cause-
big enough. I think she must have been somehow messing around
Oh.
or something. But how she got in that perilous position, I don't
The-
really
the-
know.
the paper doesn't-
Because when the people with their ubiquitous cell
Okay.
phones started doing it, she was already, you know, past her waist,
Okay.
below the thing. So she was set on this thing. So I've been looking at our courts of late with great distress.
With great distress.
The innocent go to jail, the guilty go free. Another case today, the Bella Bond case. The guilty walk out totally untouched. The innocent are sent to jail. Juries all over this country keep setting free homicidal maniac police officers. And unfortunately,
That's a pretty broad statement, though.
no, it's not.
Well,
No, it's not.
He didn't say they were all homicidal maniacs.
No, they're
the ones that are
they're very
homicidal.
small percentage of police officers, and one of the things that's really troubling is the blue wall chooses to stand behind the homicidal maniacs in their ranks, and they don't seem to realize that taints all of them.
To police themselves.
You know, but the thing is, I don't know whether to blame these homicidal maniacs. I mean, you know, you come up to a car, you shoot the guy in the driver's seat 7 times, you're a homicidal maniac.
I'd say so.
And I don't know whether to blame them or to blame these juries that keep setting them free.
I hate to bring up something that's different, but
Well,
what
go
about what about former President Obama and all these charges against him for not? He found out that the Russians were hacking and going to try to change the election in favor of Trump. Why didn't he do something about it? He had 4 months before the election.
As Colonel Potter would say, bull cookies.
Bull cookie. What do you?
Bull cookies.
What do you say, Susan?
What could he have done though? How could he have stopped it?
If he had come out,
That's why they call them hackers.
what we know is that the CIA came to the President of the United States with heavy suspicion that the Russians were after that, weren't quite sure what their motivation was, wasn't quite sure what their objective was, couldn't prove it at the time, were pretty sure. What's the president going to do? If he called a news conference and went on television saying Vladimir Putin and the Russian government are trying to elect Donald Trump president of the United States, everybody, including all the media, would say, oh, he's trying to influence the election. He's interfering in the process. This is obstruction
So what if he
of our
brings?
thing.
What if he brings in a round table of the people who were the heads of these all these intelligence agencies, and
They didn't all yet agree at that time.
well, they were pretty close to it. Everybody was suspicious of the whole business.
The intelligence community did not come to this unified position the Russians are doing this until October. There is no way, in fact, and the fact of the matter is he did do things about them. He put in sanctions, which Trump immediately got rid of. He called Putin and said, "Watch yourself, I'm watching you." His going on the air and interjecting this into the election would have been as disruptive as anything. He was in a box. There was nothing he could do.
Well, they were murdering Hillary anyways with this phony charge about the email. So what more how could it hurt her? That's what I'm saying. If this thing had been exposed.
Michael, it could have hurt America. Trump, Clinton, fine. America's what counts.
So the Russians are pulling this stuff, and
And they're going to keep pulling it.
yeah, well,
Only
This
next
is-
time they may decide to back a
it's-
Democrat.
it might be worse than espionage if they'd gone ahead with this thing to do it with the balloting in
Even
certain
what they
states.
did is worse than espionage.
Yeah, okay.
It is worse. It's very, very serious.
Well, that's what I was getting at to begin with.
But Comey
Okay.
testified that Trump never asked about it or asked what we could do about it.
Okay.
He doesn't care, either because he knows it all and he was complicit, or it was, yeah, they were on my side, so let them go.
Yeah, but,
you know?
but what was important was the email things that he comes up with about 8 days or 9 days before the election. Okay.
Comey's no
Comey.
hero. Ladies and gentlemen, on a lighter note, or we hope on a lighter note,
Okay.
it is time for the BATV unrehearsed, Big TV unrehearsed Thespian Society. You wrote it here, it set me off. Production for this evening. We reached into the vault. We went back 11 years, almost exactly 11 years
Who was
for
president?
this. And it
George
carries the
W.
What?
George W. was president.
2006. Yes,
Yeah.
we were approaching the end of the W
He
regime.
was a big bicycle fan, George. Okay.
Yeah, George looks good. You know, looks good in retrospect. It's entitled Energetic.
Okay.
Action. All right. Enough about gas prices.
Easy for you.
You take the bus to work.
Oh, stop whining.
I don't like bicycles much.
President loves it.
Does he have a favorite bike?
Yeah, and he keeps it in the limo's trunk.
Or takes it on Air Force One.
Is this all about conserving?
Well, you started it.
Well, I liked Oliphant's cartoon today.
Who's he?
Well, what do you do on that bus?
I read a newspaper.
The editorial page
Nah, there's too many words there.
There's always a political cartoon, though.
So what?
makes fun of some issues.
Why?
It's commentary, I guess.
Yeah?
People are concerned.
Since when?
His cartoon showed many people bicycling.
Oh, very funny.
Not really hysterical.
Two bicyclists are talking.
But it's only a drawing, Mike.
China has a new energy policy. One says,
They're selling us their bikes.
and buying cars.
Oh, yeah, that kills me.
You don't get it.
Why would they sell us secondhand bikes?
Satire, surely you know that.
Well, are they any good to drive on?
Get real.
He means it.
Well, are they?
I give up.
He knows better.
Wait a second. It's a road race, right?
I guess.
You're giving up?
There's no belly laugh there at all.
Guy was making a point visually.
You will never see tons of bicyclists here.
What if there's a gas shortage?
Then we'll just use that sugarcane stuff.
Ethanol, huh?
Sure, but you know that's a joke.
You never know.
No, this is America, pal.
Well, we got plenty of coal.
Messerschmitts flew on it.
World War II Nazis refined it for petrol.
Yeah, gas from coal.
Coal pollutes.
Well, it's better than bicycling.
Bad for our environment.
Buses have to run on something.
Natural gas, diesel.
Yeah? You remember the Stanley steamer?
That's true.
And coal-burning locomotives?
Smoke can poison you.
This is 2006, isn't it?
American ingenuity. Whoops.
American ingenuity.
Sorry.
We're being interrupted by a phone call.
Sorry, I thought I shut this off.
It can help. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. We'll be back in a second.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We stop importing foreign oil.
So we import Chinese bicycles.
You know I don't find that humorous.
It's whimsical, Joe.
He doesn't know what that means. huh?
Wise guy.
There's electric power.
Just keep changing AAA batteries.
You could plug in the car at night, you know.
But the power plant runs on fossil fuel.
Oh, yeah? What about solar power?
They're
Very good, Joe.
bicyclists all carrying solar power panels.
The cartoon would have to be bigger.
Yeah, but the Chinese would be very happy to sell us all the panels.
That's not amusing.
The White House with a sign on it.
Property of China.
This is another cartoon, I suppose.
I think he's getting the idea.
Public transportation needs power too.
No, there was a time I used to walk a lot.
Running used to be healthy.
And then your feet bothered you.
I know what, I'll buy a horse.
Very constructive.
Keep the animal in your garage.
I don't have a garage,
Keeping a horse in the city is difficult.
but I like horses.
You'll need a special license.
Anyway, Dobbin eats oats.
Back to nature is healthful.
Dobbin will leave plenty of fertilizer around.
So I'll take up gardening.
With Dobbin's help.
Not much land left.
You already built a stable.
I don't know, oil companies keep finding more oil.
He's changing his tune.
Taking care of a horse can be expensive.
Okay, I'm getting the message.
There's no free lunch.
What are gas pumps made of? Gold?
Blackout.
Oats. Dobbin eats oats.
Okay.
I didn't say.
All right.
That reminded me, Susan, of a time I was doing a summer barn theater production. And it was back in the days when cell phones were brand new. They were big as bricks.
Yeah.
And there was a woman at a ringside table. And in the middle of the first act, her phone rings. She picks it up, she answers it. The next thing I know, she's sitting there at the table, about as far away from me as I am to Mike. He's going, "No, I'm at the theater. No, I'm seeing a play. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's all right." I wandered over to the edge of the stage. I looked at her. When she looked up and saw me looking at her, she shut up for a minute. And I said, "If it's for me, tell him I'm busy."
Got a big laugh, I hope.
And yes, it got applause.
Okay, the U.S. Internal Revenue Service is currently owed about $138 billion in unpaid taxes.
Most of it's Trump.
Individuals, corporate.
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Does Congress and President Trump consider providing the IRS with more funds for better equipment, more trained employees to collect the money? That's the question.
You know, ironically, the answer is probably no. You'd think it would be yes, you know. But on the one hand, they want to cut taxes, right? And apparently they don't want to get rid of everything because they want billions more for weapon systems
Yeah.
and
Right,
things like
right.
that and subsidies to their friends. So you'd think they'd want to collect this money. On the other hand, a sizable percentage of it would probably be collected from their donors, and they don't want to do that. you
No.
know? As a matter of fact, talking about the donors, one of their big donors just got the contract to redo the FBI building.
That's a nice building. Ah.
But a big donor,
Oh,
a big donor.
Yeah.
And as far as I could tell, he got it in a no-bid contract,
okay.
which would put any other president in jail.
Yeah.
A no-bid contract.
You know how they used to call, what was the guy's name? They used to call him the
I was
Teflon
just
Don.
I was thinking that. I was just getting ready to say Teflon.
Gotti,
Gotti.
right?
Right.
Gotti.
No, but I was just getting ready to say this is the Teflon
Donald.
counselor.
Now this is
Chancellor.
this is the Teflon Donald.
Yeah.
Gotti was the Teflon Don. This is the Teflon
When it came
Donald.
to picking up trash or something, the big trucks. Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I have a question.
You got
There's a little tiny tempest in the teapot at the moment, at least that's my characterization of
Okay.
it, about Bruno Mars. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I heard about it. I don't know.
Bruno Mars
Did you say-
performed
oh.
the other day at the BET Awards.
Right, okay.
And he was apparently very, very good and successful and etc. But there's a whole bunch of people on social neighborhood saying he shouldn't be allowed there. He's appropriating our culture. He ain't black. He shouldn't be tolerated.
Oh, because
This
he's
is-
Puerto Rican and Filipino?
yeah.
Okay.
So there's this thing in public in social media at the moment that says that if you're not black, you shouldn't be allowed to perform funk. I don't understand this. Shall we kick all the black people out of opera? There aren't a lot of them,
Well,
Some very good ones. though.
yes, but
But that means then, if they feel that way, then, what's her name? Mariah Carey shouldn't be there.
well, yes, because she's appropriating our culture theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Since
Her mother's white.
well, it's not. I'm not sure. Yeah, but I mean, I don't understand this thing of saying this group owns this section of art.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but
You know?
yeah, and
But what is this concept that one group owns a certain kind of art? This is, I mean, would there be a big protest if I joined a mariachi band?
well, I think, and I definitely could be wrong, but I think part of it goes back to think about Little Richard and Pat Boone.
Oh no, but that was a whole different thing. That was a case. That was a case of Little Richard creating the music and the record companies having Pat Boone cover it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was very sensitive to that because I was actually a DJ back in those days, and I played the original artists. You know.
But I mean, I think that this may have
Yeah.
coming something. You know, it may not be exactly the same thing, but I think it might be parallel to it.
No, I'm sure it's somewhat related, but I'm not sure.
Well, we haven't got much.
And besides,
We
Bruno
have-
Mars is writing his own music. It's not like he's taking somebody else's
Most
music.
people, how many people out there know who Mars is?
Probably
people.
80%.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what about these?
Bruno Mars
what
is
about these
probably
two?
the third or fourth best-known male musical performers
What
in the
about the
world.
military psychologists Bruce Jessen and James Mitchell?
You ever hear of them, Susan? I never heard of them.
Well,
no.
they're the guys who said all these torture things that the CIA was using were okay, and furthermore, we were soldiers doing what we were instructed to do.
I was just following orders.
Okay.
Absolutely. That didn't go over at Nuremberg, and it shouldn't go over in Washington.
Well, that's
Yeah.
it. They're having a civil trial with these two guys. I don't know what the answer is.
Oh, it's interesting. Who brought suit? That would be interesting to see who did that.
I don't know.
So,
But I know the case comes up September the 5th in Spokane, Washington. It's the
in
only one.
Spokane, Washington.
Yeah.
Interesting. They wanted to get as far away from where this was done as humanly possible. But here's an interesting little sidelight on things. Canada's immigration system is totally overburdened at the present time. They can't hold enough hearings. They can't clear enough people, which is making people stay in shelters a lot longer. And in Canada, they're perfectly happy to have you, but until you get your paperwork, you can't get a job, you can't get
Yeah.
housing and
So
stuff
you
like
can
that.
live in America?
And huh?
Can you live here while you're waiting?
No, the reason they're overburdened is all the people fleeing the United States.
They're all oh, you mean
Fleeing Trump.
the illegals,
In December,
undocumented.
in December alone, no, Many of them are actually documented here. They just don't trust Trump. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. We'll see you in our dreams. Good night, everybody, from the Fun Show here at Big TV.
And happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same station.